Long before Luke Cage was born, the murky depths of Slaughter Swamp held the legend of a man who refused to stay dead. Solomon Grundy, once Cyrus Gold, was the embodiment of death cheated, a reanimated brute of moss, mud, and undying rage. He lumbered through centuries like a living curse, his mind fractured between fleeting humanity and pure monster. Gotham whispered his name as a cautionary tale. Born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, yet now Grundy wandered far from the shadows of Gotham. A mysterious shipment of illegal metahuman tech had drawn him south, his half-conscious mind stirred by strange energies that pulsed through the night air. The trail led him to the harbors of Harlem, Luke Cage's home turf. To Grundy, the smell of the place was thick with life, with warmth and vitality he no longer possessed. It gnawed at him like a reminder of everything he had lost. Luke Cage, meanwhile, had been tracking a different thread. Reports of entire shipping yards wrecked as if a hurricane had stomped through them, containers of alien alloys disappearing without a trace, and terrified dockworkers speaking of a white giant with death in his eyes. At first, Luke chalked it up to rumor. New York had its share of tall tales, but when a series of late-night attacks left dozens injured and half the waterfront in flames, he knew it wasn't just street gossip. Harlem was Luke's city. Ever since that fateful experiment turned his skin unbreakable and his resolve unshakable, he'd made it his mission to keep predators, human or otherwise, out of his people's lives. This wasn't just about protecting property, it was about keeping Harlem safe, proving that strength meant responsibility, and whoever was behind these attacks, they weren't just a thug with a crowbar. Witnesses described something inhuman, 8 feet tall, skin like stone, eyes glowing with sickly green fire. Luke's first encounter with Grundy wasn't planned. He'd been scouting the charred remains of Pier 47 when the swamp-born giant stepped out of the fog. The air smelled of decay and wet earth, as if the swamp itself had come to life and walked into the city. Grundy's heavy footfalls made the steel beams groan. "Big man," Luke called out, voice calm but edged with warning. "This is Harlem. You don't belong here." Grundy's head tilted, pale eyes flickering with faint memory. His voice rumbled like gravel under a storm. "Home, no home. Grundy, take." The words were simple, broken, but the intent was unmistakable. Grundy wasn't here to talk. He was hungry, for power, for the life energy thrumming through the city, and something about Luke's unyielding stance made him snarl. Luke squared his shoulders. He'd fought men with guns, mutants with claws, even gods who played at being men. But there was something primal about Grundy, something that whispered of death and old curses. Luke felt the weight of that aura, but he didn't flinch. "You're not taking anything," he said, fists tightening. Before the first punch was thrown, the harbor itself seemed to tense. Wind howled off the East River. A rusted crane creaked overhead. Grundy took a step forward, the pier trembling beneath his massive frame. Luke planted his feet, the unbreakable man ready to meet the unstoppable corpse. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they were a faint echo compared to the thunder of Grundy's growl. Harlem had seen gang wars, alien invasions, and supervillain rampages, but tonight it would witness something raw, the clash of a man who couldn't die, and a man who refused to break. As the moonlight cut through the fog, the two figures closed the gap. In that charged moment before violence erupted, Luke felt the weight of the city at his back and the heartbeat of Harlem in his chest. Grundy, ancient and undying, felt only the hunger of the swamp and the bitter taste of eternity. The fight for Harlem, and perhaps for the restless soul of Solomon Grundy, was about to begin. The first collision was thunder. Luke met Grundy's charge head-on, muscles coiling like steel cables as the undead giant swung a tree trunk arm. The impact cracked the pier beneath them, sending splinters and rusted bolts spraying into the river. Luke slid back a full yard, boots digging furrows into the soaked wood, but he stayed upright. Grundy's eyes flashed green fire, surprised to find something that didn't crumble. Luke countered with a piston-like punch to the gut. It was like striking a concrete wall. Grundy barely budged, a low rumble rising from his chest. He grabbed a shipping container and hurled it like a child's toy. Luke dove aside, the container smashing through a crane in an explosion of sparks. Sirens screamed closer now, but the harbor felt like another world. Fog, firelight, and two titans locked in primal combat. Harlem's not yours to wreck, Luke barked, driving forward. He hammered Grundy with a flurry of blows, ribs, jaw, solar plexus, each strike powerful enough to drop a semi. Grundy staggered, but his body knitted back almost instantly, gray flesh tightening like wet clay. Grundy can't die. The giant roared, sweeping a massive fist across Luke's torso. The hit sent Luke skidding across the pier, smashing through a stack of steel drums. Pain flared, but his unbreakable skin held. He rose, breathing hard but focused. "Good thing I'm not trying to kill you," he muttered, dusting off shards of metal. Grundy charged again, but Luke changed tactics. Instead of meeting force with force, he darted sideways, using speed and Harlem's steel bones to his advantage. He led the brute toward the half-collapsed crane Grundy had damaged earlier. Each time Grundy lunged, Luke redirected him, ducking under wild swings, baiting him closer to the precarious structure. Finally, Luke seized the moment. He feinted left, then drove a shoulder into Grundy's side, with the force of a wrecking ball, sending the creature crashing into the crane's main support. Metal shrieked. The massive arm groaned and toppled, showering sparks as it fell directly across Grundy's torso. Pinned beneath twisted iron and several tons of steel, Grundy bellowed, thrashing with superhuman strength, but the crane was wired to live current from the broken power lines. Electricity surged through the metal, arcing bright blue across Grundy's body. The swamp monster roared in pain, his regenerative magic faltering against the relentless shock. Luke didn't let up. He ripped a heavy chain from the dock and wrapped it around the crane's base, securing it to a concrete bollard. "You're done for tonight," Luke said, voice low but unyielding. Grundy strained, but the combination of electric current and sheer weight finally slowed his struggles. The green glow in his eyes dimmed to a pale ember. "Grundy, not stop," he rasped, the words fading into a guttural moan. Luke crouched beside him, chest heaving. "You don't have to stop," he said evenly, "but you're not tearing up my city again." Police floodlights bathed the pier as backup arrived, but the officers held their distance, awed by the scene, the unbreakable man standing tall, the undead monster subdued beneath a fallen crane. Grundy's head lolled, the ancient sorrow in his eyes flickering for just a heartbeat. Then the swamp reclaimed his consciousness, leaving only silence and the hiss of sparking wires. Luke turned away, knowing the creature would eventually break free. The undead always did. But tonight, Harlem was safe, and tonight the immovable man had proven stronger than the undying monster.